Greetings and welcome to Illinois in Focus Weekend Edition, powered by the Center Square. I'm Greg Bishop, Illinois editor at Franklin News Foundation, publisher of the Center Square Newswire service. This week for Illinois in Focus Weekend Edition, the Center Square reporter Jim Talamonte and I will discuss another late night of legislative action leading to changes to the state's energy policy, the prospect of tax increases for mass transit, and the ongoing debate around public safety and immigration enforcement. All of that and more when we return for more Illinois in Focus Weekend Edition, powered by the Center Square.
Some people would call him a loser. He ran for state office. He was beaten. He started a business. He failed. He ran for Congress. He lost. He was nominated for vice president. He lost again. But he knew only those who never tried are the real losers. And Abraham Lincoln was no loser. Persistence. Pass it on. From the Foundation for a Better Life at values.com.
Welcome back to Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop. We're recording this just before midnight into Friday morning as the Illinois State House continues with legislative activity, finishing up fall veto session. Joining me to talk about this and so much more is Jim Talamonte. Jim, of course, the Center Square here on the ground, we've been watching this unfold all day long. The day started bright and early, and we're still at it. It's almost midnight, and I believe we're probably going to be here until about 2 o'clock in the morning. Still some unfinished business. But one thing that has passed already, both chambers, is that energy omnibus bill. Jim, things got pretty passionate in both the House and the Senate. You watched the debate, Wednesday night and then Thursday nights into the evening while taxpayers and ratepayers are enjoying dinner with their families. Looks like legislators went ahead and passed a pretty massive energy bill. What's all in this thing?
That's really a wide-ranging piece of legislation, Greg, and this is kind of the way things have gone historically in the General Assembly. We had FEJA, we had CRGA, and now we have CRGA, the Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act, the latest round of alphabet soup that Democrats say is going to lower utility prices, expand the grid, which is getting hammered in terms of capacity with all the data centers and artificial intelligence and so on. Republicans say it's going to cause major rate increases, as they say CRGA did, the last major piece of legislation in terms of energy in 2021. So Senate Bill 25, this was discussed in committee over the last week or two at least, and then it went through the House on Wednesday night, and then just through the Senate on Thursday. I voted 37-22. So there's a new line item, and the big issue here that was the determining whether this was going to pass or not. Was there going to need to be a change to the battery storage financing? So the other provisions were there was some opposition to some parts of the bill, expanding authority for the Illinois Commerce Commission. There were concerns expressed by Republicans about that. Expansion of energy efficiency programs, some questions on either side about how effective that is. But the big thing the big part of the bill, I guess, in terms of energy grid expansion is the end of the nuclear moratorium, on new nuclear facilities in Illinois. So a number of lawmakers have been pushing for that to end for some time. And Governor Pritzker kind of indicated he was open to that finally after really hedging for a number of years. But the battery storage and how it would be paid for. Other states have done battery storage, and this really brought some fierce debate well into the evening Thursday. That why should Illinois ratepayers, Illinois electricity consumers, have to pay for battery storage to expand the grid? Well, the supporters, the clean energy advocates, solar industry insiders, they say this added storage is going to add electric capacity, expand the grid, keep prices down. But in other states, the developers have paid for the battery storage development, not ratepayers. So this was a concern. State Senator Sue Rezin brought up that, why is BlackRock, a billionaire corporation, getting this paid for by Illinois ratepayers. They're going to have this line item added to their bills starting in 2030. So that was the big question. Would people vote for this? And there was some question. State Senator Willie Preston, a Democrat, told me a couple of weeks ago he was a no because of that. And he did vote no, but most of the supermajority party voted yes, and the measure passed over, again, heavy Republican opposition and some passionate, speeches from Terry Bryant on the Senate floor, talking about the hypocrisy, how this is an $8 billion rate increase for Illinois families. Senator Chapin Rose, Katie, bar the door. You took the caps off, referring to price caps, and a few others also, put in their 2 cents about this. Jason Plummer, this is example 1A of everything that is wrong with how the state of Illinois functions. So, interesting debates, but it did go through. So Illinois has this CRGA, latest piece of energy legislation, and it's going to expand battery storage. It's going to end the nuclear moratorium, but how our bills will be affected, I guess, depends on who you ask. But Republicans are saying this is going to lead to higher prices.
Yeah, and it's something that they said, and particularly Chapin Rose, that people don't believe the Democrats anymore because, as you said, you had CRGA, and now we've got a third iteration of some kind of renewable energy subsidy program where ratepayers are going to be paying for this. When we were told that, the Clean Energy Jobs Act passed, it was going to help keep energy, clean and affordable. That really hasn't happened. And we had subsequent legislation, same thing. We were told it was going to keep things affordable. It didn't happen. We've seen increase in prices over this past summer where businesses, families of all sizes are being hit with upwards to 40% plus of an increase in their utility bills. So, Chapin Rose said, nobody believes you. He repeated that over and over again on the Senate floor. But regardless of the opposition, including severe opposition from the Manufacturers Association, saying that they like renewable energy, they make renewable energy, they use renewable energy. But they raised the red flag, saying that this is going to increase their costs considerably. And it's also going to make it less attractive for business investment in the state of Illinois. But obviously, we'll see that get onto the governor's desk. And the governor did promptly put out a statement right afterwards, right, Jim?
He did, and very supportive of this. The governor, of course, the governor has been a big green energy or clean energy advocate. And it's telling that supporters of this legislation were the clean energy groups and solar energy, the solar industry, solar developers and companies were behind it, along with organized labor, because there is also a number of these green energy projects where, in Illinois are going to be requiring union labor. So on the other hand, as you said, manufacturers, NFIB, small business organization, NFIB Illinois was opposed to this, and manufacturers, small business groups, and of course, American Petroleum Institute, opposed as well. So, different factions on both sides, with the governor a proponent, and certainly it'd be shocking if he not only did not sign it, but will make certainly a major press conference event, out of this. And even in his immediate statement, as has been the case with just about every statement he's put out about just about any issue, there was a shot at the Trump administration saying this bill is going to push us forward where the Trump administration is holding us back in terms of clean energy expansion.
And again, this is Illinois in Focus Weekend Edition with the Center Square. Jim and I are recording this here now, approaching midnight, Thursday evening, heading into Friday morning, and the legislature's still going at it. And if you want to see the latest, go to thecentersquare.com and get the newsletter in your inbox. Just sign up for that at thecentersquare.com. You can read about the energy bill. You can watch highlights from some of the floor debate. and plenty of other stories, Jim, as we're here for the final, I guess, few hours left of fall veto session. They really didn't, they did agree to one veto that the governor made, an amendatory veto of a bill that changed some law concerning families and making it more gender neutral. But one thing they haven't touched was the bill that Treasurer Michael Frericks wanted passed that the governor vetoed. That has not come up, and here we are in the final hours, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So that's a story we're going to have to follow up on. But Jim, something else that has been much talked about that as we sit here now, still has not been brought up in the Illinois House, and that is the mass transit fiscal cliff and how to pay for that fiscal cliff, let alone bring about some changes and reforms to the operation of the Regional Transit Authority, the Chicago Transit Authority, Metra, Pace, and so on. And they're talking about possibly increasing taxes, and even, as you reported out several weeks ago, Jim, they are going to take some interests from the road fund to help pay for mass transit. And it's been fascinating to watch this all unfold, because you and I watched in May whenever the Senate passed their version of funding the mass transit fiscal cliff with a $1.50 surcharge for retail delivery. That was not brought up in the House. Now, the House, during veto session yesterday on Wednesday, again, we're recording this, it is now the clock striking midnight here as we record this. People listen to Illinois in Focus on their time or on the radio over the weekend. But just know that we're on the ground here at the Capitol and they're still working. But the House version of their mass transit fiscal cliff bailout is, at first, it started with a slew of taxes, a billionaire tax, to try to go after money for, certain types of gains that, the ultra wealthy may have. That was included. You have another tax proposal to tax amusement. So that would have been like streaming services. There were a slew of other taxes that the proponents of it in the House brought forward, but then all of that changed early Thursday whenever a new proposal was brought up. And it wasn't even physically printed yet, Jim, but they had House debate in a House committee, fully anticipating they're going to bring it up in the House in just moments. But they still got to also get it to the Senate. But it changed. They dropped the amusement tax. They dropped the billionaires tax. They dropped several other taxes and instead are going with the, revenue that may be generated from returns on investments from the road fund, hundreds of millions of dollars there to go pay for the mass transit fiscal cliff. And they're also giving, the Regional Transit Authority some more taxing authority to increase taxes there. All of this to fund $1.5 billion, they say, is going to bring about modern mass transit. And again, this is just on the plate for what Illinois taxpayers are going to wake up to Friday morning as legislators continue to haggle over these issues. Now, again, we don't have the latest on that mass transit fiscal cliff as we record this. The House is still in session, and we'll have all the latest at thecentersquare.com. But obviously that's another big issue. Jim, something else that was brought up, kind of, thought it may advance, but it really has not gone much further than just advancing out of a House committee, and that dealt with pension reform. And you just, saw a Reason article recently about, how Illinois has the worst funded pensions in the country with, the taxpayer liability, $15,000. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's remarkable. So yeah, we're number one again, Greg. It seems like a familiar refrain, but not number one where you want to be. Illinois leads the nation according to this is a new report, just in the last day or two from Reason Foundation, reviewing over 300 public pension systems. So Illinois leads the nation with over $15,000 per capita. That's per person in unfunded state and local pension liabilities. So Illinois over 15,000 is in first place or last place, depending on how you look at it. Next after Illinois is Connecticut, 10,000 per capita. So not only does Illinois have the most in unfunded state and local pension liabilities, Illinois has the most by 5,000 per capita, a huge lead or deficit compared to Connecticut, which was in second place or with the next worst in terms of unfunded liabilities. And interesting that a California retirement system, I think the public workers one actually in California had the most of any actual individual system. Second, the Illinois teachers retirement system, $83 billion in unfunded liabilities. So where is that money going to come from? Well, unless there's some real reform that happens with the pension systems in Illinois, you know where that money's going to come from. It would come from where it usually comes from, and that's from the taxpayers. So if that pension debt isn't addressed at some point, those numbers are not going to get better for Illinois and for Illinois taxpayers.
Yeah, and the pension bill that was discussed in committee, Jim, deals with Tier 2 pensions. We could probably spend an entire hour talking about the background of how we got to Tier 2, the cost of Tier 2 versus Tier 1. But briefly, Tier 2 is any public sector employee hired after 2011. Has lesser benefits upon retirement. Now, unions were opposed to this when it passed back in 2010, 2011. And it's taken them now 14 years to get legislators to essentially revert back most of Tier 2 back to Tier 1, especially that 3% compounded annual increase in their pensions when they retire. Now, this isn't just for state employees. This is also for local public sector employees. And you had municipal groups pushing back on this, saying, we already have the highest property taxes in the country. This bill is only going to make our property taxes go up even more because it's going to increase the local liability for Tier 2 pensioners by tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. Altogether, we're talking like $16 billion or so that it's going to add to the pension costs over time. Proponents say that they need this pension fix because of Social Security safe harbor provisions and the possibility that Illinois Tier 2 pensions won't match Social Security and the state could be penalized for that, costing taxpayers. But they also argue that overall, they're working towards the pension debt, and this bill will only make that better. And they're arguing that over time, by 2045, they will be able to get the pensions funded to 90%. But again, Jim, as you saw, what we're funded 46% or so across all of the state's public sector pension funds. But then when you look at all of the local pension funds, those are struggling in some areas. I mean, Harvey, Illinois just laid off a bunch of people because they are financially strapped. And you've got the pension issue playing into that. Even in the city of Springfield, Jim, when I was covering the Springfield city government, 15 years ago, they were complaining about how all of Springfield city government's share of property taxes was eaten up by pension costs. So that's another big issue. Of course, we'll be tracking that, but that does not look like it's advancing at the Illinois State House. Again, go to thecentersquare.com, get the newsletter, and stay up to date with the latest. You'll be able to see not just these stories, but also highlights from some of these debates. And subscribe to us on YouTube, where you can see those stories and more. Jim, something else we got to tackle here as we get closer to the end of this program. We're recording now early Friday morning. It's just after midnight, and the legislature's still going on here for the final day of fall veto session. But something else that we covered today, Jim, was kind of an interesting split screen with Governor J.B. Pritzker preparing for Halloween amid increased immigration enforcement efforts in the Chicagoland area, while Kristi Noem, the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, was in Gary, Indiana, talking about immigration enforcement. Tell us about it.
Yeah, quite an interesting juxtaposition there. Kristi Noem is just across the state line in Gary, Indiana, with Indiana Governor Mike Braun and law enforcement officials. And Mike Braun, the governor of Indiana, is talking about how his state police and local police and sheriffs are collaborating with the Department of Homeland Security, with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and Border Patrol. They're working on highway programs where they're working together to keep undocumented or illegal immigrants from driving with CDLs. There have been a number of incidents, including in Illinois, with people driving trucks. But the more notable cases, perhaps in California, and there was one in Indiana as well. But and Christie knows that we've got to push states to stop issuing driver's licenses to illegal aliens. And so they're collaborating. But Governor Pritzker had sent a letter to Nome asking that she pause the federal immigration enforcement in the Chicago area over the Halloween weekend, because there was an incident where ICE was apparently surrounding students going to a Halloween parade last weekend, and it drew strong reactions from the community. So, Nome said, no, we're not going to do that. We're keeping kids safe because we're going after pedophiles and sex offenders who are victimizing children. And so we're not going to pause that. And it's shameful that the governor would do that, would ask for that. So, and then just not long ago, Greg, we had new legislation going through the chambers of the General Assembly and a lot of complications with this brought up by some of the Republicans. But a bill introduced by the Speaker of the House, Chris Welch, House Bill 1312, to ban civil arrests. This is aimed at immigration enforcement, but there are questions about the language at certain places: hospitals, courthouses, college campuses, and daycare centers. Welch saying all people should feel safe at these places. But their concerns, John Cabello, who's a law enforcement officer, expressed concerns this could end qualified immunity for police officers. There could be major exposures to lawsuits and liabilities. Well, and it's no coincidence that Speaker Welch and Senate President Don Harmon have been heavily funded, their campaigns have, by the Illinois Trial Lawyers Association. So potential liabilities for law enforcement officers was brought up by some of the law enforcement people who spoke in committee about this. So a lot of concerns about this, and it's something that perhaps the ramifications of it, because this was rushed through at the last minute into the final hours of session, some of the implications and ramifications we may not know for days or weeks.
Yeah, and even Senate President Don Harmon acknowledged that it's likely this law, if ultimately it gets on the governor's desk, fully anticipating it will, that there will be lawsuits about it. So that's another ongoing story that we'll have to continue to track here. And of course, all of this comes as you had Gregory Bovino, a Border Patrol commander, dragged into court, Jim, and you sat through that. Briefly tell us about what was discussed, and then ultimately the following day, what the appeals court did.
Quite a scene at the Dirksen Federal Building in Chicago, and Bovino didn't do a lot of the talking. Most of the talking was done by Judge Sarah Ellis, and after going through it, and she was very patient, seemed very compassionate about what he does, Bovino, and his job and his agents, but at the end, she laid down an order that he report to her in person every day, every weekday, about that day's immigration enforcement activities, and specifically use of force. And she ordered him to have a body camera, which he didn't have, by Friday. And, but then an appeals court said, no, he doesn't have to appear in court. That came the very next day. So, this saga is going to go on as well. But Bovino was, he was very respectful of the judge and firm, though he was pretty much staring at her most of the time. And he said, we can get a camera by Friday, because the judge told him he needed to get one. And the judge said, well, I think you talked to Secretary Noem, you should be able to get a camera. And he said, we'll be able to do that. So interesting times, but the judicial systems had got a lot going on in the immigration area, especially in the state of Illinois here.
It's not going to slow down. Well, Jim, thanks for all the work that you do for the Center Square. Long nights like tonight, really encourage people to go to thecentersquare.com, get the newsletter, and subscribe to us on YouTube, because you can watch some of the highlights of debates around these crucial issues impacting you as a taxpayer, impacting you as a utility customer. So get to thecentersquare.com. Jim, again, thanks for joining us this morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. And people can keep up with all of these stories and more at thecentersquare.com.